Hi, this is Kevin Limiti from KDH News, and I'm here with Killeen Councilman Jose Segarra. How you doing, sir?
Good.
Great. Maybe you could start by telling us a little bit about your background, how you got to Killeen, and so on.
Well, I got here in 1990 through the military. I came from Korea and was part of the first CAV. And then in 1990, 91, when they have the Gulf War, I went to the Gulf War, came back and got out in 1992. And I wasn't sure if I was going to make Killeen my home. And here we are 30 years later, still thinking, should I make Killeen my home? Grew up in Chicago, south side of Chicago, lived in California, Georgia, and traveled through the military, Germany, Korea, Gulf War, Honduras. And I think because of those experiences, I really enjoy Killeen. I always compare to all those cities, especially the one that I grew up, and say, Killeen is a fantastic city, for someone growing up in the south side of Chicago. But I opened up a business here in 1994. I started into real estate, so it's be almost 30 years now. And I think, I'm grateful Killeen's given me that opportunity because, I've never finished college. I was an enlisted guy in the military. And here I am, the opportunities that Killeen has given me. When I got here in 1990, there was population in Killeen was 60,000 people. 60,000 people.
Mm-hmm.
Today, we're almost at 160,000 people. I remember one of the first restaurants franchise was the Red Lobster. They're still there, and there was nothing else. I'd have to go to Las Casas in Temple or a Burger King on Fort Hood to go eat something fancy. And look at how much it's grown. So I always say, people are always, not going to be 100% satisfied. But I say there's 100,000 people that say Killeen is a good place to live. So.
Mm. Burger King is fancy.
Fancy back then, yeah, that was it. Burger King on Fort Hood.
I was wondering if you could tell me what your biggest hopes are for the rest of your term in terms of what you're looking to accomplish.
Well, one of the things I've always said, the biggest challenge for leaders is keeping up with this growth. I mentioned the growth, but it's always trying to keep up with it. And you want to try to anticipate what's going to happen. The challenge is that, and this is from my years' experiences, when you try to anticipate, it's hard to forecast what's going to happen. So you don't get a lot of positive feedback onto that because, a lot of times people will say, well, you're wasting money. And so one of the biggest things, and that comes to mind specifically, is our roads. When I came on as city council, I knew that we had a major problem with our roads. And people did not want to spend money on that. We couldn't even get $1. I think it was $1.60 that we initiated finally after years of going back and forth because it's something that we knew that had to be done. It was getting worse, but people could not see that. They see the roads until a catastrophe happens. We had Erie come, and it really had some serious damages on our road. And then at that time, it was okay, let's fix all these roads because the roads that tore up were the ones that needed repair. They had cracks where water got underneath, and that concrete, because of the ice, made them just bulge and everything. And so that's an example of one of the tough things that leaders have to do is you have to kind of plan ahead, but do it in a way that people really understand. But ultimately, it's just helping, create that good quality of life that people are looking for. And in my discovery, it's not necessarily jobs. Jobs, people do want good pay and all that. That's a big factor. But up north is where, Chicago grew because of the industrial. And you can still go up there and get high-paying jobs. But a lot of those people are moving here where they're cutting their pay for a better quality of life. And what does that mean? That ability, and believe it or not, this sounds crazy, but I've had people move up for the north and they say, I get to drive my car. It's like, what? I never got to drive my car. I had to take the subway. I had to take the commuter from the suburbs. I had to walk to work. And it's like, in the big city, you don't get to do that.
Right.
And it was just, and sometimes we take that for granted. Say, yeah, we got plenty of cars here if you want to drive.
Yeah.
So,
Can relate since I'm from New York City,
New York.
at least partially. And speaking of roads, Chaparral Road was something that was discussed at Tuesday's council meeting. Is that something that kind of falls within the realm of what you are hoping to accomplish?
Well, and that's something that we have to do, and that's future planning there because of the school and stuff. So it's nothing where I came out and say we need to fix that. That's something that just has to. What I'm talking about is just kind of taking care of some of our older roads that have been neglected. You know, that's one. A lot of our infrastructure, because if, you know, building is going to happen, just like Chaparral Road is going to happen because of the school, the growth and all that. But my thing is just, you know, stop neglecting. We got to figure out ways to stop neglecting some of our older infrastructure. Killeen, as we know, has been growing south. The north has been boxed in. And if you were asked, you know, when I ran, you know, my very first time even as mayor, my thing was we need to figure out a way to improve that north side. My big thing was Rance here, fix that, and we're in the process of doing that. Look how long it took to get to where we're at now. And I think by doing that, it's going to help improve our downtown because, as I always mention, in order to help businesses, what they need more than anything, above giving them money, what they need above anything is that traffic, that people, that consumer that comes in. Because you can have the greatest donuts, the greatest burgers, whatever. If you don't have enough customers coming in on a daily basis, you're not going to succeed. And I think that by helping improve the roadways, the traffic that comes out of Fort Hood north on the North Killeen, it's quite high, and we just got to figure out ways to make it where they come to our north side, and that comes with all the improvements and building. I think the biggest thing is just building more places that people can live in. I know that we're doing that apartment complex, and I look forward to that. You know, that came down to a 3-3 vote when the decision came. I was the mayor because we only had 6 council members, and I had to break that tie. Mm-hmm. And I'm very proud of that because we wouldn't have that there. And I think that that's kind of, hopefully, I'm hoping that it'll have a domino effect and bring more businesses in our downtown.
Yeah, and you talked a little bit about your experience as mayor, and I was kind of wondering if that helps inform some of your decisions that you make as a council member. Like, how does that work?
Oh, definitely, because I learn. You know, part of that is just, you know, as much as what the mayor does, it allows me to engage in the community. And a lot of times when we get there as a council member, you know, we may not be as engaged as we should be, but when you're mayor, you get invited to a lot, you get to interact with a lot of people, you get to go out there with a lot of different businesses and hear a lot of their concerns. And so even that I'm not as mayor, people still know me in that realm, and I get to do that to some extent. And people feel comfortable reaching out. That's always been my thing. That's still my thing. You know, city gives you a phone. I've never taken the city phone. I say, you know, I got my own private phone. They're like, Mayor, people are going to call. That's what I want them to do. And to this day, people still call me on my private phone. And is this the mayor's office or is this the? No, this is, I'm my own secretary, and I always like to answer my calls to kind of interact. I just had one right now coming here. The guy lives in Cove, and he says, I don't live in Killeen, I live in Cove. Well, why are you calling me? I get around. Well, I can't help you. He said, no, I want to know why Killeen, water restrictions, you guys get to water 2 days a week, and up here we only get to like once. I said, well, that's very interesting. I didn't know that. I said, I don't know anything about Cove. I know about Killeen. But those are the kind of calls that I enjoy, you know, because they make you more informed. And when you make those decisions on city council, I think it's important to get that feedback and as much knowledge as you can. It's not just my own personal opinion that sometimes can be biased.
Do you plan on running for mayor?
No, not at all. I mean, not right now, at least I know. I know that I'm going to support the mayor as much as I can. I try to help her as much as I can. I know at first she was saying she wasn't going to do a full term, so I thought about it, but I think she enjoys it, and I think she's running, and I'm going to just support her as, you know, I want her to succeed.
Okay. I was wondering if you could explain like your rationale about slashing the fee increases for the developers.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, no, definitely, and I've explained it, I think that I'm for charging them more, but I think that, doing it so much in 1 year, it's too much, and the reason is because my thing has nothing to do with the builders, and I've said that many times. My thing is, keeping our prices down. I understand what our home buyers are looking for, and I think that we want to make sure that we work with them, because if they start pulling out and they start, we've done that already, where we had other developers and they say, it's getting too difficult to build in Killeen. What that's going to do is it's going to increase new home prices, and that I don't care. I don't care how high they go. The problem is, like me, I sell existing houses. I don't sell new houses. When somebody calls me, it's somebody that lives in the house. And when their price goes up, it's a good thing. So that is, I should be for raising prices. You would think, me being as a realtor. The problem is, as a councilman, it's taxes, it's ad valorem taxes. So when that new home price goes up, and it takes the existing home prices up with it. And when that goes up every year, we'll see higher home values, higher tax prices. I think that as a city council, if I wanted to raise taxes, I don't have to go to the percentage and say, let's increase the amount of percentage that we charge our citizens on ad valorem. All we got to do is stop building, and you will see home values go up, and the city increases its revenue coming up, and that's how easy it is to do. And a lot of people sometimes got it backwards, because as a city council member, I hear people come before council and we have to approve subdivisions or something in their neighborhood. And if you notice, one of the very first things that somebody speaks on, they'll say, I don't want this. Why don't you want this? Because it'll make my home value less. And
Right.
It makes sense to me as a realtor that you don't want your home value less if you're thinking about selling. Because I've met with a lot of people that have done that in the past, and I say, you must want higher taxes. They say, I don't want to pay higher taxes. Well, you want your home value to go up, then that means you want higher home taxes. Are you planning to sell? I had one guy told me, oh no, I'm going to be here forever. And then why are you coming here and saying your biggest concern is your home value going up? And because that's going to increase your taxes. And so that's it. That's the biggest reason, is that I don't want to see right now there is a shortage of inventory, whether you believe it or not. We have about 350 homes just in Killeen for sale. We're supposed to have 800 homes. Mm-hmm. That's what we call a balanced market. And so we're going to still see home prices go up, but whatever I can do to prevent those home values from getting skyrocketed, because I think I mentioned we had like a 66% home value increase in the last 5 years. That's crazy. And so that's a good thing for the city, more revenue. It's not a good thing for our average homeowners. And the biggest thing that I fear is our affordability. I said that when I think of everything, it's affordable. And it's funny that you guys did that article, because I kind of mentioned that even before that article came out last week. And I said, my thing is affordability. And we have young soldiers. We have, I would say, not only the biggest first-time home buyer in the country, but I would say we have the largest percentage of young home buyers in the country too. And that's another thing that I'm sure there's a stat. And we also have the smallest percentage of minority, the gap between your Caucasian and your minority in the country. And I know that one came out with African Americans, that they buy houses here. The gap between the African American and your Caucasian nationwide is over 50%. In Killeen, that gap is about 17% or even less now. And so we got minorities that buy houses. We got young people that buy houses. And that's the biggest thing that concerns me when we are looking to not work with these developers, and they come up and, you know, in any moment, they're always saying, you know what, I'm gonna go build in Temple, I'm gonna go build somewhere else. And that right there is what my big concern is.
Right, right. And the decision for the city not to collect any fees that it may have missed in the past, is that something that you're also in support of?
No, they would have, I think that city should have done what they're supposed to do. I don't think because they made a mistake or not, you know, they can't go back and say, hey, now we're gonna go, because that definitely, I can tell you, the developers, the builders are gonna say, well, we've already sold those houses, you want us, it was your responsibility. And I made mention to that, I think you heard me when I say, you know, it's the systems that we have in place. We need to figure out a way to update that. You know, you have sometimes a person, whereas it should be some kind of process there, so that it's not a person making a decision, it's a process. I know when we got permits, there is a checklist there. And I know when I got a permit, when I do fix on my house, there is a process there that you have to follow. And so the builders, if they knew about it, I'm sure they could not go or move into the next round unless they were, if they don't do something on the house and the city comes out, they give them a red tag. And a red tag says, that's it, you cannot go any further unless this is taken care of. And I think that we need a process like that for paying bills. You know, you can't say, okay, you owe money, but here is your certificate of occupancy.
Right.
Well, why did you give them a certificate of occupancy? And this can be 3 or 4 or 5 years later and say, oh, you owe us money. Well, that house you gave us, you signed off saying everything was good. And so we owe you money. Don't sign off on that certificate of occupancy. Don't give them a green tag.
Right.
And that is a process that I think the city has dropped the ball if that's the case.
Right, yeah, because the argument goes that like if like citizens maybe missed their water bill or something, that they wouldn't necessarily have it be like forgotten about per se.
Well, and that's a good one, because when you pay water, they have a process for it. If you don't pay, they know about it. And it's like, if you don't pay, you got so many days, you're gonna get late fine, and then if you don't pay a certain day, you're gonna get cut off. So that's what I'm talking about. We need a process like that. So what it's telling me is there was no process in place for that, and now we need to put one in place. And okay, we messed up, and now we're gonna go back and charge you. Well, you should have had something in place, because, you know, if you have a citizen and there's no process, doesn't pay their water bill, and it gets free water for 2 or 3 years, you know, it's like, well, whose fault was that? You let me get that.
Right. So at Tuesday's meeting, there was like, in the beginning of the meeting, there was a man there who ran a automotive shop. His name was George Dunbar. And there was a great deal of talk about that situation with his vehicles, and some of them were considered to be junk vehicles by the code enforcement. But then at the latter part of the meeting, there was a great deal of discussion also about the site standards ordinance, and I'm just kind of wondering if these two, the developers and Mr. Dunbar, were given like equal like consideration in terms of like what they came to the council about.
Yeah, you know, we try to give everybody equal consideration, and I am inside of Mr. Dunbar, if you noticed that. And I said, you know, we need to work something out with them. And I think that it gets back to having a process in place, because I was looking at some pictures that he gave us, and some of them had the registration sticker. It was still good. One of them had expired maybe 2 or 3 months ago. And I understand the frustrations. I wasn't even satisfied, if you remember, with the last question. I was gonna respond to what the staff said at last. They said, you know, because I said, you know, it doesn't make sense that, you know, you guys are saying that they need an inspection sticker, and I think you understand that, and they did. But then at the end, I think the response to me was something that he should let the customer take the car home, and then when it's ready, he can call. And I said, that doesn't make any sense either. I mean, if you let the person take the car home, then we're gonna ticket them for it being in front of their house, not moving. Your neighbors are gonna complain. You gotta pay towing back and forth. So I mean, in reality, in a good world, that would make sense, but in reality, it doesn't make any sense. If you have a car that's broke down, you take it, get it towed to your shop. I know if you got AAA, they ask you, they say, okay, where do you want your car towed? You get one free tow within a certain miles. Well, tow it to the mechanic, because it don't make sense to bring it to my house and then sit there when I gotta wait until the mechanic take it to them. So that's kind of the expectation of people, that if they have a car that doesn't work, it's going to the mechanic's house or the mechanic's business, not to the house of the person, because then we'll be fining them for having cars in front of their house.
Right. But do you think that the developers are given too much of a cozy, have too much of like a cozy relationship with some of the council members?
No, I think they respond to things like that. When they have an issue, they start calling and letting their council members know. And I think that they have that, there's a bunch of them. So a lot of times it may be that point that it might be unfair, because if you have one person, he's only one. Where you have a group, you got developers, you got home builders, you got the Home Builders Association, and that's, what do they call that? Lobbyist, I think. And so that's the power of lobbying. So maybe you're right, maybe they have that, whereas a consumer, it's just one person. But I treat everybody fair. I try to treat everybody fair. I know that when the developer spoke last night and he was asking for an extra time, I said, nope, we want to be fair across the board. That's it. We don't want to give you any extra time. Everybody has the same amount of equal time. And, I think that, we got to be, aware, cognizant of that. Sometimes, builders, like I say, they can be a pain in the butt sometimes, but sometimes, they do provide a lot from the city. Just like when we're attracting a business, I think we do the same thing. We try to do things to try to incentivize a business here, because, it's going to help our community. We did the downtown where we incentivize businesses. So builders, they provide some good to the city. They provide, a lot of good, I should say, jobs. They provide tax revenue. They provide homes for, all the homes that we live in, we're providing for them. So, there might be that in there. We understand that the value that they provide to the city is big.
Okay. So that's about all the questions I have, but if you have anything that you'd like to say to your constituents or that haven't been covered in the interview, you're more than welcome to.
Well, the only thing I would say, I'm here all the time, and you're welcome to call me, 254-290-0548. I always make myself available if I can. My biggest thing is always trying to explain to people what's going on, and for the most part, people help me out with that. They give me the credit and say, Mr. Segarra, thank you for explaining that, because a lot of times we only hear tidbits. We're there on a council meeting, as you saw yesterday, maybe 4 or 5 hours, and sometimes the consumer, I understand, is out busy making a life, and they may not get all the details. So we're here for you. So anytime, reach out anytime. Thank you.
Great. Thank you so much. This is Kevin Limiti with KDH News. Thank you for watching.